How often should I release music? It's a question I hear all the time, especially from artists who are just starting out, releasing their content, releasing their music out into the world. And it's a worthwhile question to ask. So this video is going to break down into 3 distinct sections. Now, in the first part, I'm going to give you 3 options for release cycles that you might want to consider as an artist. I'm also going to tell you why you would use any one of these cycles and when you would use them depending on what your output is. Now, in the second part, I'm going to give you 3 different strategies you might use on a long-term basis to release music over and over again and build your catalog as an artist depending on which release cadence you subscribe to. And then thirdly, I'm going to give you 2 times a year when you absolutely should not release music ever. Okay, so let's jump right into the most pressing question. How frequently should I release music? The short answer is as frequently as you have the output to do so. How much music can you turn out and how fast can you turn it out? If you can turn out a song a day to start, I would encourage you to hit publish on a song a day. Not because one of those songs is likely to go off. They're probably gonna suck at first, but because you will build the mechanism for getting good at writing and releasing music. And once you get a flow down and you figure out how to make good music, you can slow that down because the quality of your output would increase. But in sticking to a specific cycle that isn't actually blazing a trail, the first option I would say is to release music every 2 weeks. Some of the most successful artists, I would argue the most successful artists of today who are blowing up and building careers in music are dropping songs every 2 weeks. Now, this works best for people who are buying beats and then outsourcing the remainder of their process after they actually track vocals. Now, for those of us who are kind of like me, who like to, fiddle with everything and mix and master everything and spend time producing the track, turning on a song every 2 weeks is close to impossible. That's why I don't do it. I just don't have the bandwidth to go every 2 weeks for a release. But if you do have that bandwidth and you are concerned about how fast you should go, I would say go every 2 weeks if you can do it. Now, the next one is sort of the middle ground that I would say most artists probably fall into, and that is every 4 to 8 weeks. Now, the sweet spot here that you'll hear time and time again from the talking heads online is every 6 weeks. And there's a lot of truth behind that. Every 6 weeks is a predictable cadence to release music while still giving you room to breathe and have a job and have a family and all that, but it's still fast enough to sort of play the game in the eyes of Spotify and social media and all that stuff. Spotify's Release Radar playlist is available to new music for 4 weeks from the date of release. That gives you 4 weeks of kind of release cycle, and then you've got 2 weeks of downtime before you hit it again. This is sort of a natural ebb and flow to putting out music without overextending yourself and then burning out. Now, if you want to press into the fast end of that, once a month is really good. If you want to press into the slow side of that, once every 2 months is still really, really good. Anywhere in this spectrum of 4 to 8 weeks is still a high volume of output on an annual basis, but in a more manageable format. So the ideal version of me, Tom, would be to release music every 6 weeks. Now, the third cadence of release, I would say, is every quarter. Now, this is probably the slowest I would ever recommend anybody go if you're trying to play the game a little bit and win online, so to speak. Once a quarter, if you can get music out every 3 months, is enough to sort of maintain the system, keep your energy flowing, keep creativity flowing, and actually hit publish on new material without actually overextending yourself and pushing too hard if you don't have the bandwidth to do that. It's a great way to maintain some solid growth throughout your lifespan as an artist. You'll keep seeing your numbers grow, assuming you're actually promoting those songs, but you won't feel compelled to actually spend your life on social media, creating content and doing all the stuff all the time. Okay, so you've picked your release schedule. Now let's talk about strategy. There are 3 kind of strategies that you can use here. Number 1, you can just release singles. This is what a lot of folks do when they're releasing songs every 2 weeks. Just single after single after single after single. No album, no EPs, no nothing. Just turn it out and be done with it. The second one is waterfall releasing. Now, this is a slightly more complicated version, and there are arguments to be made about how effective it is. But the short version is you can release a song and then 2 songs and then 3 songs, where that first song has been released now 3 times on 3 different releases, ultimately culminating in either an EP or in the long term, an album. You're basically stacking data on Spotify. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that and my experience with it in the past, you can check out this video right here, which will go into more depth on that topic. It's a lot more detailed than we can get into in this video. And then the third way is to just build up to an album. Now, you You can sort of curtail this depending on how fast you're releasing music. If you're releasing a song every 2 weeks, then you can drop multiple albums per year. So you can just release, let's say 9 singles, and then on the 10th, you have a 10-song album. You have one unreleased track that appears on the album, was not released as a single, but then you have a full-length record too. If you're doing it every, say, month, you could release singles all year and then release an album at the end of it. If you're doing it once a quarter, you can release singles for 2 years and then do an album at the end of every 2-year cycle. So there are different ways to do that depending on what you want to do. Now, personally, in my experience, I will say from an artistic standpoint, there are few things more gratifying than releasing a cohesive body of work as an artist. It made me feel good in a way that nothing else has as a musician. I'm really proud of myself for having put together an entire album of work, but on the algorithmic, performance marketing side, an album really didn't do much for my growth as an artist. Really, the singles are what drove growth for me. The album was for me. So singles are kind of for everybody else, album for me. So if you feel the same way, I would recommend doing that. Okay, and the last part, when should you not release music? Well, really, there are 2 very clear times every single year when you shouldn't release music. The first time is Thanksgiving week. Nobody is discovering music the way that they are normally throughout the rest of the year during the week of Thanksgiving. And this is working under the assumption that you're releasing music every Friday when you do release. So you should release music on Fridays. It's just kind of how the whole system is set up. It is release day, right, in the world of music. So I would recommend releasing your music on Friday, but I would not do it the Friday after Thanksgiving, especially if you're in the United States. Now, if you're somewhere else, these rules might not apply to you. But if you're in the US, as I am, releasing music on the Friday after Thanksgiving is basically asking to not get a lot of streams because everybody's with their family. They're listening to music they already know. They might be playing on their phones, but they're not discovering new music on Spotify. They got the sound off, they're on the couch while the football game is on, and they're just scrolling TikTok. The next time to never release music is, you probably guessed it, Christmas week. If you're going to release a Christmas song, you want to release it at the beginning of the month so it has plenty of time to be Christmassy during the season. If you're releasing a Christmas song on Christmas Day, you're giving yourself 7 days of Christmas time for that song to be enjoyed before the new year kicks in and nobody's listening to Christmas music except for the people who are crazy obsessed with it. Don't release music on Christmas Day or Christmas week. It's kind of the same reason as Thanksgiving. People just aren't on their phones with the volume up listening to new music for the most part. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, but people are generally either playing on their phones with the volume off, ignoring their family, or actually spending time with family and not on their phones in the first place. So those are the 2 times a year. If you have to amend your release schedule to accommodate for that, if you're releasing every 2 weeks and it falls on Thanksgiving, falls on Christmas, just shift it by a week. Just release, 1 less song a year, 2 less songs a year, and avoid that headache because you're probably not going to get a lot of action on your music during those 2 dates. So to tie this up in a bow, the thing that really matters here out of all of this is not how frequently you release music, not how you structure your releases, whether it's singles or albums or which day you pick. But if you are releasing music, the most important thing is, are you promoting it? You could release a song every single day, but if you're not telling anybody about that new music, it doesn't matter. It's going to fall on deaf ears. If you are releasing music, you've got to be promoting it. You've got to be telling people about it. So that is something that I always try to factor in when I am putting out new music is, do I have the bandwidth to create content for this? Whether it's just ads, focusing on that, or spending time creating organic content. That amount of time sink should be factored into the schedule as well. So release music often, create content often, and run ads in the background to help you grow on autopilot. So that's it for this one. If you want to check out something else, you can watch this video right here. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.